Sanibonani, Dumelang, good evening and welcome to episode 156 of the Private Property Podcast. I'm your host, Zama. It's a Tuesday edition of the Private Property Podcast, and welcome if you're joining us from Facebook, from YouTube, or from Instagram. And if this is your first time tuning in, then do make sure that you go to some of our old episodes and catch up on some of the great content that we have already served. And to our regular viewers, welcome back. Thank you for choosing us yet again here on the Private Property Podcast. You know how we always roll every single day at 7 o'clock. We bring you the best of making sure that you have a seamless journey on your property journey. Whether you are an investor, you're a landlord, or a tenant, we are here to cater for you. And this evening, we're looking at something that affects people who already have a property and they're looking at selling. And the topic that we're looking at this evening is your property not selling? Here are the 5 reasons and remedies. Now, as much as we keep talking about how this is a buyer's market and there's quite a lot of stock on the market, we also know that there are probably properties that are not as selling as fast as they would like to sell. So we're going to be looking at the potential reasons why your property might not be selling and what you could potentially do to make sure that it sells. And this is something that's going to be very interesting for those of us who probably put your property on the market, or even if you're about to put your property on the market, because you want to not make these mistakes so that your property sells as quickly as possible. And remember, later on the program, we're going to be announcing the lucky winners who are going to be walking away with 500 Rand in cash. That is, of course, the competition that we're running this week. We weren't able to give away that money yesterday because, all the cash vouchers, that is, because not everybody was watching us live. While we do have new potential winners, and remember, you have to be watching us live in order to be able to claim your prize. So wait until the very end, especially if you know that you've entered the competition. You might just be the lucky winner this evening. Well, to get us started with the conversation this evening, I'm joined by Nondumiso, Mthwa, who's the CEO of Indwala Property Group. Nondumiso, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, Zama. Thank you for having me on your podcast. To the viewers.
No, it's only a pleasure. We're talking a little bit off air that right now we are seeing really great activity in the property market. And I'm sure that a lot of practitioners in the property space are quite happy with the type of activity that they're seeing. We are seeing quite a lot of sellers who want to sell some of their properties, whether it's because they are upgrading or downgrading, or perhaps making sure that they're letting go of some of the assets in their portfolio just to free up a little bit of cash flow, which also means that there are quite a number of buyers that we're seeing because they probably could not afford to get their foot into the property ladder, or some of them maybe already have a first property and are looking at adding additional properties onto their property portfolio. But of course, one of the things that happens is, a seller has a conversation with an agent. They say that this is how much I want to sell my property for. And sometimes, sellers will advise accordingly that, look, that's probably not the best price. These are the kinds of prices that would be more realistic. And I know that there are some sellers who unfortunately don't listen to the agent. Then the property stays on the market for quite a long time. Perhaps take us through the first reason why somebody's property could potentially not be selling, especially during this period.
Thank you so much, Zama. Okay, first, I'd just like to get this part of the marketing of the property out of the way. Now I'm speaking to sellers that have already got their reputable agent on board. The agent knows their job. They've advertised it on portals like your private property and your others. And those that use print media, they've advertised it. They've done everything, put up a board, you've done your show house, the pictures you've got on your site are good pictures of the property. So now we are talking to people that have already got an estate agent on board. Now this agent has done everything. Some agent has even put it on the shared listings, to share with other agents. So why, after all this work that the agent has done, why is my property not selling? Now the number one reason that you find a property is not selling is because the price is too high. The property is overpriced. Now I know there's a temptation, when you're a seller and you've invested so much in the property, there's a temptation to actually over-capitalize on the property, because you need to remember every area has a ceiling. So now if you end up investing, doing renovations that go beyond the market ceiling of the area, you're going to have a challenge. You are obviously going to, be in a situation where you're saying, but I can't take below this price. I can't take below $1 million. I've already invested such and such, into this property. That's number one. Secondly, another reason sellers overprice as well. Some sellers, they're living in an average, neighborhood. Now they want to upgrade, go to such and such posh market somewhere. What some sellers end up doing, they price their current property according to how much they're going to need where they're going. And unfortunately, that's not how it works. You cannot price according to your needs, but you have to price according to the current market tendencies. So the first and foremost reason why properties stay long on the market and they end up becoming stale is overpricing. So that's my reason number one. I don't know if I can go into the second reason, or we can.
And before I think, Nondumiso, we go into actually that second reason, how do we then remedy this one? So, the first one is we overprice it, whether you're overpricing it because you've overcapitalized or because you're looking at that, upgraded house that you want to go to. You probably want to go to Bryanston or Remsa or another, more posh suburb. And you're thinking, look, this is the amount of money I need to be able to get from this to make sure it pays itself off agents' fees. And I also get a little bit more to be able to put into the next property. How do you then go about remedying that? Because I think, the second one is probably easier. You need to have more realistic guidelines in terms of, or you need to be more realistic in terms of what the next step for you might be. So perhaps the next step is not a posh place in Bryanston, maybe it's another suburb in the surrounding areas, or not the most expensive place in Bryanston itself. But then how do you remedy if you've overcapitalized, for example, on the particular property and you're already seeing that you may potentially make a loss if you don't price it properly?
Mm-hmm. Okay, if you've overcapitalized, obviously there's no undoing now this overcapitalizing that you've done. You've put your 500,000 rent house, okay, just an example. You put your 500,000 rent house. You can't obviously rip them now and take them out. Yeah. Your option would be to wait out the market, just give it time, let it grow. But then again, if you let the years go by, the prices where you're going also, they're gonna increase as well. So that is just saying that's one of the options you would have. But there is actually no direct remedy for overpricing, overcapitalizing, except to wait. Another thing as well, maybe at the point of buying, I know we're talking about selling now, but at the point of buying, it is always good for a buyer now to do their spade work. So before doing those fancy renovations, ask a professional, ask an estate agent, what is the going rate in this area? What is the ceiling for this area before I start investing into this property, because I have a desire to get such and such a price? Would it be possible? So I would say the best thing to do is get informed, get information. There's Google about the area, find out what is rental market, find out how much rentals go for. Should you want to wait out the process now before you sell? Agents have got reports, they can do CMA reports for you, tell you what's going on. I think the most important thing, just keep yourself open, keep yourself informed, find out. Because I know sometimes it's like when you want to find out about teeth, you call a dentist. But you find sometimes that when people want to find out about property, they don't ask, the professional estate agents. So we are here. Generally, agents are here. We've studied these things, we've learned, we've been trained, so we understand the trades. And you don't have to come to an agent when you want to sell, even before, selling, while you're still contemplating. Just make it a point, find out, go to your nearby estate agency office, speak to someone, ask for advice, and just do it early. Start preparing, maybe 6 months before you actually get your house on the market.
Mm-hmm. And then, Nondumiso, what would then be the second reason why somebody's property is potentially not selling?
Okay, this one, I think a lot of estate agents can agree also with me on this one. There is also a challenge of access to the property. Sellers don't understand how much this can actually impact what we do. You find some sellers, you're phoning, okay, Mr. Seller, I've got your house on the market, I've advertised it, I've got a buyer to view. Now, sellers sometimes are not flexible when it comes to viewing, and they give you like, oh no, I'm only available on Sunday from 5 to 7. I'm just making an example. Oh no, my schedule is very busy. Now you need to understand as a seller that as much as your schedule is also busy, with buyers as well, everybody's busy. So you have to try and be as flexible as you can. If you trust your estate agent, you could even leave keys rather, so that when you're not available to show the house, the keys are accessible. If you've got a helper, try and arrange more flexible times. You don't always have to be there. So I think the biggest problem, maybe not the biggest, but one of the other problems that we have is a challenge of access to the property. So be flexible, and also for those sellers that have got tenants, because you must remember, Zama, if a buyer is saying, I am available on Wednesday to view properties, you line up properties, maybe 5 for them to view, or 3, you line up those properties. Now, if house number C is not available, you're going to show your client the next available property. And guess what? A seller might have a good house, it's better than all these others, but because it's not available and the buyer wants to move, they'll make an offer on what is there. I've experienced this time and time again. So please, it's very important. Your house must be accessible, be flexible. And also another thing, sometimes we have tenants on the property, right? Mr. Seller has got tenants on the property. Speak to your tenants timelessly that, okay, in 6 months, I'm going to be putting this house on the market. I'm working now with estate agents, so and so. And if you can introduce the agent, let there be that warm relationship, because the tenant needs to understand that the agent is not a rival. They're not here to just chuck you out of the house. They're doing their job as mandated by the seller. So tell your tenants on time that, I am selling this property. And if you create a good relationship between yourself, the tenant, and the agent, you're going to even avoid these instances where, as an agent, you're taking your buyer through the property, and then the tenant starts saying, oh, but you know what, that window, if you open it too much, it actually falls. Those things like, oh, that tile there, and or maybe not that, but oh, after 4, there's so much noise here. And sometimes, I'm not saying it's not right, but sometimes you find it's not true. Some of the things, maybe the tenant just doesn't want the house to be sold because
the tenant hasn't had the best relationship with the landlord. I mean, I've had instances where, I go to view certain properties where a tenant is staying there. And I always ask, tenants some questions about the place, how they are finding the place, are they happy with it, what works, what doesn't work. And you're sometimes able to pick up when they don't have the best relationship with their landlord. And so that's why beyond, giving your tenant a heads up or notice when you're about to be putting the property on the market in time, and ask them to be patient when the agent brings people in, you also just generally have to have a cordial relationship with your tenant, because in the event where you either want to sell or when you want to now rent it to the next person, they're the ones who are going to have to be there and need to make sure that there's access. And they're the ones who can say, listen, this is actually not the greatest place. There's a cockroach problem in the whole building. It doesn't matter how many times they fumigate it, but they're always there. And there have been many instances where I didn't buy a property because of feedback that I got from a tenant, where I thought, you know what, the numbers make relatively good sense, but I thought if I put somebody in there, they're not going to be happy because they're going to be flagging these exact same things that this tenant is essentially saying. So I think it is quite important for the landlord to just typically have a good relationship with their tenant. So, I mean, I think one of the big things there, I suppose, Nondumiso, with access is making sure that you tell your tenant in time. And I've had this experience. I mean, there's one of the properties that I'm currently selling, and I told my, the tenant of that particular property way before I even got an agent, to list the property to me. I was like, listen, I'm thinking of selling the property, and I'll very likely be selling it in the coming months. I haven't quite decided whether I'll sell it or not, but I'll let you know if I do. And your lease is still in place, so explained everything. You don't need to look for a place. Everything is still fine. And months later, when I then still decided, okay, actually, I do want to sell this property, they knew what was happening. They were not shocked, and they're now able to, make sure that there's access when the agent needs to bring people through. So I think that's just such an important one, to be able to have that kind of relationship with your tenants. Before we go to the break, Nondumiso, so that third reason why somebody's property could potentially not be selling.
Okay, my third reason, clutter. Clutter. Okay. Now you must remember, it's not the expensive things that you do to the property that will sell it. You don't have to put up $1 million hedge and, put stunning paints, velvet, whatever. But you know what? Just a clean house. Making sure, when a client is going to come through, the dishes are washed, the surfaces are nicely wiped, windows are open, the house is breathing, the curtains are open. And if it's a little bit dark, you see, okay, it's a bit, switch on the lights and just let the house breathe. Small things. And even, things like your bathroom, tiles, sometimes you get that mildew, small things that you can do. It's not expensive. You don't have to repaint. So instead of, buying expensive, just wipe dirty walls here, there. Clean your bathroom, the black things, the mildew that surrounds it. Clean that out, make it fresh. It's not the big things actually that, that actually sell a property. The yard, cut the grass. And if you've got dogs and maybe they, make poo-poo here and there, clean that, make it presentable. And also just be careful as well about the smell in the home, especially maybe if it was raining and you let the dogs in when they were wet. I'm just making an example. Those things, because as sellers, we get tempted to just view our house as our house. Sometimes you have to view your home as an outsider. Sometimes dust in the blinds, basic things. And that feeling of cleanliness when someone walks into the property, it does a whole lot for your property. So for me, declutter your home. Some people like dolls, those little dolls, and then they put a lot of them everywhere. Somebody can't now envision beyond these dolls. They get distracted. Some things actually serve as distractions to the viewers. So I know, I'm obviously not saying now, don't put things you like, but when you're having clients through, so that they're able to breathe, they want to have that feeling, that freshness, that cleanliness. So yeah, basically also, it's just a pointer, I'm not saying if your home is cluttered, it won't sell, but it does help to declutter. your home.
And it's so interesting that you mentioned that as one of the reasons, because I remember there's an episode we had a couple of months ago with somebody who does home staging, and this is of course for new developments. One of the big things with new developments is people want to be able to see themselves living there, so they obviously have to stage a house a particular way, use the right sort of neutral colors. And if you're looking at young professionals, even the type of furniture that you would put in, you typically, for example, wouldn't find those massive goma couches in those kinds of homes that are being staged. So it is important that when you are selling your home, sometimes not do an overhaul of your furniture, but certainly put things away, try to make it as neutral as possible, so that the next person is also just able to imagine themselves there, especially with houses where there's quite a lot of different rooms, quite a lot of character. Somebody needs to be able to imagine themselves living there. And sometimes if the space is too cluttered, too heavy, and there's a lot going on, it's difficult for them to see themselves or see what they could potentially do with the space. So that is something that is actually quite important to always just bear in mind, especially when you're selling a home that you are living in, that you've personalized quite a lot. And now you're, of course, selling it. People also need to be able to just get a glimpse of how they could potentially live in that space. No, so we're going to go for a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to take some questions and comments from our viewers at home, and also go through the last two potential reasons why somebody's property is potentially not selling. And of course, later on in the show, we are going to be giving away those 500 Rand cash vouchers to 2 lucky winners. I think this evening it's 2. I'll just double check. It may just be 3 lucky winners. And I do hope that you're watching at home. If you know you've entered this competition, of course, that competition was one where we asked you to share your big milestone with us. We are, of course, celebrating our milestone of having 500,000 of you on our Facebook page, engaging and making sure that the community is growing. And if anything, we're now on the road to 1 million of you showing us love on our Facebook page. And we wanted to find out from you, what is a big milestone in your life that you would like to share with the community? And you could, post a picture along with the story that you're going to be sharing, and we'll be giving away those 500 Rand cash vouchers every single day for the rest of the week. So you need to make sure that you're watching us live in order to be able to claim your prize while we are still on. So if you know that you've entered, make sure that you stay until the very end of the program. We're going to go for a quick break, and we'll be back just after this. Welcome back to episode 156 of the Private Property Podcast. I'm your host, Zama. This evening, we're talking about something that a lot of sellers probably want answers to, and we're looking, is your property not selling? Here are 5 reasons and remedies. I'm joined by Nondumiso, Mthwa, who's the CEO of Indwala Property Group. And before the break, we looked at 3 reasons. The price could be too high, and this price could be too high because you potentially over-capitalized on your property, or you're potentially looking at the next property that you want to buy, and you want to be able to make as much money from the property that you are currently selling, but not adequately pricing your property is quite a big mission. And I think you're going to find that you're very likely not even going to get people interested in coming to view your property. The second reason is access to the property. More often than not, you may find that you give the people who want to come see your property as the agent is working with you a difficult time in coming to access the particular property, or perhaps it is your tenants who need to make sure that there is access and they struggle to get adequate access, and that's something that could be one of the reasons why your property is not selling. And the third one is slightly cosmetic. If there's too much clutter in the property that you're selling and you haven't kind of done a little bit of work and just making it clean, presentable. We're not even talking about renovating it at all, but making sure that when people come to view the place, it's clean, nothing is all over the show, and you want to make sure that they're able to get a sense of what they could potentially do with that space. Well, of course, taking your questions and comments at home on this particular one. Perhaps you are a seller right now struggling to sell your property. What are some of the potential reasons that you think might not be, or you think are the reasons why your property is currently not selling? And we've got a comment here on Facebook from one of our top fan gang members, Umkateko Ahape, who says, I've also seen a lot of sellers price the property in order to cover their debts. So the bonds, levies, rates, electricity in arrears on the property. Others buy overpriced properties and also want to sell shortly after selling and still want to get something from the property. And that is something that we actually see quite a lot. We've got a question here from Facebook, and this one is coming from K Fortune, who asks, Nondumiso, they ask, what do we look at when the evaluation is done? How do we know that the price is right? So that's a question on pricing. How exactly do we know that that initial pricing that they would have worked with the estate agent is in fact the right pricing?
Okay, the best thing for you to do here is to see what is sold in that area or in that particular street, because, okay, mark this now. I said what is sold, not what is on the market, because people make a mistake of saying, oh no, but so-and-so has their house on at 2 million and mine is better, so I can ask for 2.5 million. You don't look at what is on the market in the area, because if someone putting their property on the market at 2.5 doesn't mean they're going to get 2.5. They could have overpriced by way, way, way more. So the best thing to do is to look at what has sold in the area. And okay, this one, okay, sold for 1.2 million. It's 3 bedroom, 2 bathrooms. Okay, mine is 4 bedroom, 4 bathrooms, double garage. Okay, that one doesn't have a pool. So it's always good to compare apples with apples. Okay, this apple is smaller, this apple is bigger. So for me, that's the best thing to do. And how do you get that information? Again, go to your nearby estate agent, get that information, find out, or even going on directly you've got all these, wonderful places, portals where they actually say, I'm looking for, a CMA value of such and such an area, and then you pay per request as a normal individual without even being an estate agent. So that really helps, because it tells you exactly this sold for this sold for that. Do not look at what is on the market. Look at what has sold. This will help you a great, great deal in your area. Yeah.
And that's such an important one. So then, Nondumiso, what would be the fourth reason why somebody's property is potentially not selling?
Zama, you actually said my fourth reason before we went to the break. I was going to speak about, the fact that your home is too personalized. You need, and I think because we love our homes, we love our houses, it's close to our heart. So you do all these things that are going to make it nice and warm for you, all fuzzy inside. And maybe you like chocolate brown with yellow. Now you paint your room with stripes of chocolate brown and yellow and purple. You like that, it makes you feel good. But remember now, it's too personal. It's too you. It is true that we all have our own character, but you cannot, when you're selling it now, this is when you let it go. You release the property, because remember, also selling, it's a hard thing. I think people can sense as well. I don't know, we are human beings, we are being, you sense it when someone doesn't really want to release, this thing. You sense it with the way everything is put, and your photos everywhere, your family photos, it's like you've marked the territory. And someone mustn't feel as if they're actually invading your space when they're coming into your home. Sometimes people even, okay, there maybe I'm touching on a territory I shouldn't be trading on, but I'll just say, some people even have rooms that are locked and they say, oh no, that's personal, I won't open that. When you're selling now, you have to try now, eliminate those things, get rid of that. If there's some special artifacts that you are keeping for certain, try and move them somewhere where the clients don't have to go in, maybe somewhere in a storeroom, by the garage. Let people see your home. If you said you're selling, unfortunately, it's like you've opened yourself up now to everybody. So you can't be having, no, we can't go in there. No, we can't go in there. Let it breathe now. Open it up to everybody. Don't over-personalize it. Like I mentioned, having these dollies everywhere. People are feeling that they are infringing into your privacy, going into this and going into that. So do not over-personalize your home. Stick with the neutral colors, the paints, try and be as general as you can so that people are able to imagine themselves living in this home. Because if you over-personalize it, they're going to feel like they're infringing into your territory. It's like you've marked it, this is mine. And there'll be that discomfort. And sometimes people buy a house because of how they felt. Sometimes just the atmosphere, the warmth, the welcome, and they're coming in there, you smiling, you're greeting as the seller. A lot of decisions we actually take on because this person made us feel this way. It was so warm there. So try and be warm yourself as a seller, and don't make people feel as if they're invading your space. And also with your decor and everything you put up, accommodate, be more open. That will help a great deal.
And then that last reason, Nondumiso, why a property could potentially not be selling.
Okay, the last reason, maybe I'm going to be stepping on a few toes, but please, Mr. Seller, let your estate agent do their job. That's the last reason. That's the last reason.
Seller and the seller, right?
Yes. Some sellers, you advise, and because we're sincere, we love our job and we want to get our job done. You advise the seller, Mr. Seller, okay, this is a very nice whatever you put in there, but it's a bit intimidating for our buyers. Could you please maybe move it to there, that way? Generally, there's a lot of things, because even the issue of price, sellers mostly battle with price because they did not listen to the advice of the estate agent. The estate agent says, you know what, your house is beautiful, your finishes are expensive, but unfortunately this area is calling for this much. And I believe good, reputable estate agents, they advise their clients accordingly. But sometimes, instead of, the seller also, yes, we listen to our sellers, because to be a good agent, you must listen. But then also, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, please also listen to the advice of your estate agent. Because remember, like I'm saying, when you want your teeth sorted, you go to the dentist and you listen to your dentist, right? When you've got a problem with your eyes, you go to your optometrist, you actually, you take sorry, maybe the word listen is a bad word. No, let me withdraw. Take the advice of your optometrist. So same here with us as well. We professionals, we've been trained, been in the industry for a while. So, we kind of know what's going on. Be open, do take advice. If the agent is saying, this price, we are going to battle. Can we look at this? Here's the CMA reports, look at the current market tendencies. So just make sure that you are a good listener as well and you're able to take advice. And also on that same breath, choose the right estate agent. And by that, I mean, you've got social media to look at. Some companies are there. Look at their page. You've got your advertising portals, your private property and others, that are there. Look at the company. Oh, they're here, they're advertising there. Oh, and this one and that one. Go to their website. Look at the credentials. How long have they been on the market? If check the reviews, choose the right estate agent, you will definitely, you would have taken the right path there.
The last question from one of our Facebook viewers, Upabalwa Wolf asks, should a landlord renovate before or wait until the buyer asks?
Okay, thank you for that question, dear. Normally, sellers, they sell the house footsteps as is. I don't know if I'm answering the right question. Is she asking that when a tenant moves out, then the landlord can sort out the property? Am I getting it right?
So this would be in the event where you're potentially selling your investment property. So you're now essentially a landlord and you're selling that particular property, and you're wanting to find out, would you, let's say after your tenant has moved out, or if the tenant is still there, would a buyer potentially ask you to fix certain things? Because sometimes when you're looking at a property, maybe there's certain things that aren't quite up to par. Usually they get added onto the snag list. In other instances, and there've been instances where I'd say I'll agree to this purchase price on condition that these things are essentially fixed. So I think that's the nature of the question. That are you going to first fix certain things, or will you rather negotiate the purchase price down based on the work that you see still needs to be done in order to to have the property in the best state?
Yeah, Zama, I think you've answered that question so very well, because it's between two things. Landlord, when your tenant has moved out, you can sell the property as is. So instead of asking for 900,000 now for that property, you can see all the damages. You take it, you take the property to 850,000 instead of 900,000. Or sometimes you do get a buyer that says, okay, Mr. Seller, I will give you your 900,000, but the condition is that please fix the sagging roof, please replace the window, please the broken door or whatever. So you can put that in the condition of the sale, that, okay, this sale, the condition is that the door is going to be fixed, this is going to be done, this is going to be done. Or just saying, listen, I'm taking the house as is, but I'm not giving you 900, I'll put an offer of 820 because I'm going to fix the house. So there's no fixed or rigid way. You decide as a seller, what are you going to do, how are you going to do it, and yeah, that's it.
Well, Nondumiso, we are going to leave it there this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure to our viewers at home, they've certainly gotten a good insight into why their properties are potentially not selling. And I do hope that they'll use some of the ways to remedy the situation in order to make sure that they're able to sell. Thank you very much, Nondumiso, for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much, Zama.
And that is Nondumiso Mthwa, who is the CEO at Indwalwa Property Group. We're going to go for a quick break, and when we come back, we will be announcing those 3 lucky winners who are going to walk away with 500 Rand cash if they are watching us live in order to be claimed, in order for them to be able to claim that prize. So remember, if you have entered our competition, you want to stay tuned because you might be one of our lucky winners. We'll be back just after this. Welcome back to episode 156 of the Private Property Podcast. I'm your host, Zama Kumalo. Well, it's that time of the evening where we get to give away 500 Rand in cash to 3 lucky viewers this evening. Remember, we didn't give away, all the money that we wanted to give away yesterday. So I do hope that the potential winners this evening are watching us live so that they can raise their hand and make sure that they claim that lucky prize. I see Tula Mthwa here saying, thanks, Zama Nondumiso Mthwa. Very informative session indeed. Thank you very much there, Tulasi. And I'm sure to our lucky viewers at home or to potential lucky viewers at home, I do hope that you are ready to walk away with this money. Because if anything, I mean, it's going to be Black Friday this coming Friday. You have an extra 500 Rand in your pocket. I'm sure it will go somewhere in terms of making sure that you're able to buy something for yourself this Black Friday. Now, the first potential winner for the 500 Rand cash prize goes to Delano Skoltz. Delano Skoltz wrote, "Hi, Private Property. My biggest achievement is that I successfully purchased my first home at 24 years old, and I wouldn't achieve it without the wonderful knowledge and skills that I've learned from watching your live videos. Thank you for encouraging me to invest in property. I think this is the biggest and most important financial decision I made in my life. Keep on the good work and keep on encouraging potential home buyers." I absolutely love that at Delano Skoltz, and we sometimes do see him commenting and asking questions to the various guests that we have here on the show. I do hope that he's watching. I know he's one of our top fans on our Facebook page, so he's always engaging and part of the community. So Delano, if you are watching us live, do make sure that you raise your hand so you can walk away with that 500 Rand cash prize. And I'm sure it's going to go quite a long way. I mean, buying a property at 24 is quite a big feat that a lot of us are probably going to be very proud of if we're able to achieve. And it doesn't really matter at which age you're able to access that first property. I think the big thing is you watch shows like Private Property Podcast, the First Time Home Buyers Show, and even the Developer Show, and you get as much knowledge as you can. You get a sense of what you need to be doing in order to make the best decisions that's going to save you money on your property transactions. And then, of course, you go on ahead and sign on that dotted line. Now, I've heard here from my colleague that Delano has, in fact, raised his hand. So he is watching us live here on the Private Property Podcast. So congratulations to Delano Skoltz, who is our first winner of the 500 Rand cash prize. He's saying, "I'm here. Thank you, Private Property." Thank you very much there, Delano. The team is going to be in touch with you shortly and to make sure that they give you that 500 Rand cash prize. And congratulations on your home buy. I'm so happy to hear that watching these shows has helped you make that first big purchase and go from whether it's renting or living at home to now becoming a home owner. Now, the second potential winner, we do hope that you're watching. We're on the roll now. This one goes to Ukhoso Hlumelo. And I see Khoso is also a top fan on our Facebook page. Remember, if you're watching us on Instagram or on YouTube, the competition, we're currently running it on our Facebook page. So you head on over to Facebook to make sure that you are able to enter the competition. And Khoso Hlumelo says, "My best moment in my life was this year during lockdown when I obtained my degree in finance. Graduating ceremony was visual, so I was only able to receive and celebrate with family this past weekend. First graduate in the family and a great milestone. Hashtag milestone, hashtag 500K. And he's posted a picture of himself wearing his graduation gown and his hood. And that is Ukhoso Hlumelo. We're going to give Ukhoso a minute or two to make himself known. I do hope that he is watching us live. That's also another very big milestone. The unfortunate thing about lockdown that we've seen is that a lot of people who finished their studies this year and had to graduate this year, unfortunately, couldn't have the physical graduation, which of course has robbed so many people of their family, seeing them walking across the stage and taking those graduation pictures. If you're at Wits, you would have been taking them at the Great Hall steps. If you had what's this at UCT, it's at Jamison. I think now it's named Sarah Backman Hall steps. And I think UJ, you're taking them there by the fountain. So unfortunately, we're not able to do any of those things because of lockdown. And I've seen a lot of people still celebrating their graduation along the way, because it is quite a big thing in a lot of families. And he said, Khoso Khumalo said he was the first in his family to graduate. So congratulations to him on the graduation and paving the way for his, family. I'm sure they're, whether brothers and sisters or cousins that are watching him, and he has really paved the way for the rest of the family. So I'm waiting to just hear from my colleagues whether Khoso Khumalo is in fact live and has raised his hand in order to be able to walk away with that 500 Rand in cash. And remember, if you want to be one of the potential winners, and a definite winner, is you want to make sure that you enter the competition, and we want to hear about your milestone. So do share with us your particular milestone. You can add a picture with the story that you share with us, and you are able to make sure that you win that money. I got distracted there because I see he's saying he's here, he's raised his hand. Khoso Khumalo, congratulations. You walk away with that 500 Rand cash prize. And congratulations, not only on the cash prize, but congratulations on your graduation. I hope you continue your studies as much as you possibly can. And I'm sure you've also just paved the way for your siblings or your cousins at home. The last potential winner, I feel like we're on a roll this evening. I do hope that this last potential winner is also watching, and they've shared something quite heartfelt. They've written, and this is coming from Cecilia Mutsemedi. So Cecilia Mutsemedi wrote, I started from the bottom with my mother. Her dream was to see me in grade 11. However, she passed away when I was in grade 3. That year was my first time celebrating my birthday. It turned out to be the first I could remember with her and the last. I made it to grade 11, progressed to grade 12, then passed my matric with exemption. I got my first job as a cashier. I saved money for applications and registration fees. I further took myself to a basic computer training school. I was admitted to University of Technology the following year for a diploma. I did well, however, I dropped out due to finances. I went back after 3 years, passed all my modules with a couple of distinctions. Even though I struggled with internships, I hustled with my paper. I started to review books, and this year my essay was published on an online platform. I'm an alumni of the Young African Leadership Initiative, and even though I haven't graduated at university, I graduated from an organization that trains social entrepreneurs. I started with nothing, including a phone, but right now I'm here with a smartphone and 2 ETFs. I love that. Cecilia Mutsemedi, I do hope you're watching us live. It's such an incredible post. Thank you so much there for sharing with us. And I do hope that you'll be able to, go back to school and finish that diploma if that is part of your plans. And I'm sure that your mother is quite proud of the strides that you've made for yourself. I know Yali quite well, and it is quite a prestigious program to be a part of, whether you did the version where you got to go to the US for that 6 weeks, or you were doing it, this side where they would train the different social entrepreneurs, or also they take, the different cohorts that they would typically host. I think it would host for like 6 to 8 weeks, or sometimes even up to 3 months, to make sure that they take them through this program. So I think you certainly do deserve to pat yourself on the shoulder for your achievements. And I'm sure your mother's watching over you and quite proud of the work that you have done, and seeing you progress from not just passing grade 11, but going all the way to university. And I do hope that you'll be able to finish off your studies in the coming years. And that is Cecilia Mutsemedi. Cecilia, I'm also going to give you a minute or two to see if you're still watching us live for that 500 Rand cash prize. And of course, if you're watching us at home, the thing that you need to do is to share what your milestone is. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's the birth of your firstborn, or any of your bundles of joy who've come into this world and have brought you quite a lot of joy to you and your partner at home, or perhaps buying your first home, like Delano had bought his first home. It doesn't matter what the milestone is, and you have to make sure that you are watching us live in order to be able to claim that prize. I'm so happy that this evening we're able to give away the 2 500 Rand cash prizes, and we are of course waiting for Cecilia Mutsemedi to see if they are watching us live, so that we are able to also make sure that they walk away with that 500 Rand cash prize. We have been making up for not being able to give away this one. I'll see with the team if on Friday we can maybe make it 1,000 Rands, seeing as it's going to be Black Friday. I know a lot of people are potentially going to be spending. I certainly want to hear from you at home, maybe down here below, if you are, looking at spending something or buying something this Black Friday, what are some of the things that you've already earmarked for purchase? I know, unfortunately, we can't, houses don't typically go on a Black Friday special, which is very unfortunate. I mean, I would love to see a house that goes on a 70% discount. I'm sure a lot of us would probably purchase those houses if that were to happen. But do share with us what you want to buy this coming Black Friday. I'm sure I can organize with the team that the Friday price be 1,000 rands instead of the 500 rands. And I'm just going to wait 1 more minute for my colleague to let me know whether or not our last potential winner, Cecilia Mthwa, is in fact watching us live on the show. And as soon as I get the green light or the red light from our colleague, then we can very quickly wrap up. And of course, as I keep urging you, if you're watching us on Instagram, you're watching us on perhaps even on Twitter, I know we're streaming also on Twitter, or you're watching us on YouTube, do make sure that you head on over to our Facebook page in order to be able to enter this particular conversation. We always keep the conversation going on our social media platforms, whether it's here on our Facebook page or of course on our Instagram page, even on Twitter. You can also follow myself. I love talking property on my Twitter page, and that's at Zamandungwa_K, where we really do have a great conversation about all things relating to property. And I think I'm going to give this 10 more seconds to see if our potential winner is here. My colleague hasn't. I don't want to say they haven't gone on because I don't see the comments as they come in real time. I've got colleagues behind the scenes who monitor that one. So I always want to make sure I don't cut people off too early or don't prematurely speak. So I have to wait for them to give me that green or red light because I wouldn't want to say they didn't raise their hand and yet they have in fact done so. So we're going to give it a little bit. I see one of my colleagues is about to let me know whether or not we going to be giving the 500 Rand cash prize or not. And I think there's actually a question here that we didn't get to that was asked by Ukhantle Babezile Mahlatse, who had asked, can landlords be reported if they're overpricing tenants? And I think the answer that I'll probably give to that particular question, Khantle, is more often than not, there almost isn't a overpricing from a landlord's perspective if a tenant has signed up for the lease, because the lease would typically say that this is the rental, these are the associated costs of the particular property. So if a landlord, for example, in an area that would typically charge rental of 7,000 rands is charging, let's say, twice the amount, 14,000 rand, if you as a tenant had signed the lease agreement for that amount, with obviously the associated cost of the utility, water, electricity and whatnot, then in theory, the landlord isn't overcharging you because the price was set, you agreed to it when you signed the lease agreement. So you wouldn't necessarily have, I'll say, a basis of reporting your particular landlord. I think it's something altogether if costs that were not, or the costs that are not in the lease agreement suddenly creep up, then that's a different story altogether. I have gotten a red light, unfortunately, from my colleague saying that our potential winner is unfortunately not here. So Cecilia Mthwa, unfortunately, was not with us for this one. So we will have to roll over that particular cash prize. Remember, if you want to make sure that you win, don't just enter, also make sure that you're watching us live and you could potentially walk away with that 500 Rand cash prize. Well, folks, that's it from me, Zamantungwa Khumalo, and the rest of the private property team here. We are, of course, back on your screens tomorrow at 7 p.m. here on the Private Property Podcast. And as usual, hoping you're staying home and staying safe.